Chapter 81, Flying Soul Masters. Wu Zhangkong brought the first grade's Class 5 over. Tang Wuling, Shishi and Gu Yue following right at his heels. The rest of the students in Class 5 had expressions filled with excitement. After the results of the previous match, they had suddenly gained much more confidence in Tang Wuling's trio. Yi Yingrong walked over with a smile. Hello, Teacher Wu. She smiled and nodded towards Wu Zhangkong. Yi Yingrong truly was a beauty. Her height exceeded 170 centimeters. Her figure was superb, and her eyes were bright and full of spirit. Her rarely seen long, light green hair was tied in a ponytail and, with the addition of her fair skin, oval face, and cherry mouth, many would find it believable if they were told she was just an advanced academy student. She had joined East Tea Academy as a teacher at the age of 23 and was already a four-ring soul ancestor. To Wu Zhangkong, he considered this excellent for her age. Hello. Wu Zhangkong nodded in acknowledgement. I'm the teacher in charge of Class 3, Yi Yingrong, she said, stressing her name in particular. This was because she was certain that this icily arrogant Prince Charming had no idea who she was. This was the legended Prince Charming who lived in his own world after all. In the entire academy, it was unclear how many of the females' names he could actually remember. Wu Zhangkong answered with a single grunt before his gaze drifted back towards the stage. Shishi stood on the side with eyes full of admiration. The thing Shishi envied the most was this icy arrogance Wu Zhangkong had about him. This sort of icy arrogance wasn't a facade, but rather, it was innate. If he compared himself with Wu Zhangkong, he would be found to be truly too lacking. Yi Yingrong didn't mind this response in the least. Instead, she turned her attention to Class 3 and waved them over. The students of Class 3 hurriedly ran over, forming a neat line in front of her. Yi Yingrong said to her class, friendship is number one, and the competition is secondary. Gu Tianri, Gu Tianyu, Gu Tianmin. Do you understand? Yes, Teacher Yi. The triplets spoke in unison, making it seem as if only one person had spoken. Wu Zhangkong spun a glance at them. Upon seeing their three identical appearances, he clearly became much more interested in Yi Yingrong than these triplets. At that moment, teaching director Long Henshu arrived on stage. The second match of the class promotion tournament has arrived. First grade's Class 5. Is it still the same three people as before? Wu Zhangkong nodded. Tang Wuling, Shishi, and Gu Yue stepped onto the stage together and walked over to the center. Yi Yingrong said with a humble smile, you guys should go now too. The identical triplets got onto the stage. These three brothers shared similar traits, such as a slender figure and exceptionally sharp eyes. Due to their deep understanding of one another, their movements were completely synchronized as they walked on stage. Wu Zhangkong didn't give any pointers to his disciples. They would meet all sorts of opponents in the future, and the class promotion tournament was meant to temper them. If they needed his pointers, then they wouldn't be able to grow. Tang Wuling's trio stood in a triangular formation, with Tang Wuling as the vanguard once again. They stood tall and steady like a mountain. The three Gu brothers stood in a line, side by side. Gu Tianri was in the center, with Gu Tianyu to the left and Gu Taiming on the right. Are you all ready? Long Henshu inquired as per usual. After receiving answers from both parties, he waved his hand, declaring the start of the match. The Gu brothers simultaneously released their martial souls. When Tang Wuling's trio saw what their martial souls were, they were utterly flabbergasted. These three brothers' martial souls were exactly the same, but that wasn't the baffling part. After all, they were triplets. What was baffling, however, was that wings appeared on their backs simultaneously, creating a very powerful scene. The three pairs of wings opened up simultaneously while a white soul ring appeared underneath each of them. The three Gu brothers flew up into the air together, quickly ascending to great heights. Faced with such a scene, Long Henshu was stunned. Flying martial soul? It had to be said that flying martial souls were quite rare. With the additional fact of them being triplets, even if their soul power was weak, or they had a less than optimal spirit soul, they definitely should have been sent to a class of elites. It seems that there was a mistake during their enrollment. In reality, it really was a mistake on the academy's part. The Gu brothers hadn't signed up together. Gu Tianri had signed up first, as Gu Tianming had a stomach ache and Gu Tianming had other things to attend to. Moreover, there were numerous students signing up at all times, so the teachers were bustling with work and had overlooked the triplets. Moreover, these three brothers had also encountered a problem similar to Tang Wuling. Their family's financial situation was exceedingly ordinary. How could their parents possibly afford to buy them three spirit souls at the same time? Thus, they had delayed it and scraped together the money bit by bit until right before their registration date. Then all three of them bought 10-year spirit souls, thus fulfilling the requirements needed of the three to sign up for the academy. Their soul power was only at rank 11, and even though their martial soul wasn't weak, their soul rings were simply too lacking. Due to this, they had been placed in Class 3. The Gu brothers' martial soul was called Skyscraping Battle Eagle. It was a type of high-speed bird-type martial soul. Skyscraping Battle Eagle was a type of powerful eagle that would overwhelm its opponents with its speed. As a soul beast, Skyscraping Battle Eagles were able to fly up to altitudes of 3 kilometers. Moreover, it could maintain high speeds for extended durations. From this, it could be inferred that the three brothers were all agility system battle soul masters. Their first spirit souls were identical, a type of falcon called Gust Falcon. Its speed was exceptionally fast, but its attack power was lacking in comparison. It was only about the size of the palm of one's hand. This was a poor excuse for a spirit soul. If they had been able to pick a slightly more powerful spirit soul, their fighting strength would have been several times higher. The moment they had released their martial soul, a pair of great eagle wings sprouted from their backs and they ascended into the air. They can fly. How are we going to deal with this? Shishi looked towards Tang Wuling as he spoke. Tang Wuling gave him a slight smile. We just need to beat them down. Gu Yue, aid me with your wind element. Tang Wuling said this to Gu Yue as a blue light bloomed in his hand. Blue silver brass shot towards Shishi and wrapping around his waist. Shishi screamed, I'm afraid of heights. What are you doing? Tang Wuling unhappily said, I'm afraid of pain. But didn't you still stab me yesterday? Without waiting for Shishi's retort, he immediately pulled Shishi close, wrapping a hand around his waist. A green light flashed over, causing Shishi's body to lighten. It seemed as though his body weight had been lightened by quite a bit. In that instant, he was sent flying like soaring clouds through mist. Off stage, Yi Yingrong saw Tang Wuling holding onto Shishi. He then twirled a few times before launching Shishi into the air. He was tossed directly at the trio. The green light lingered on Shishi's body, causing him to unexpectedly rocket straight towards Gu Tianri. How was he able to throw someone so high up? Yi Yingrong was given a fright, but she quickly collected herself. The Gu brothers had flying martial souls and were triplets. Ever since they had entered the academy, she had been placing special attention to training these three brothers. She had drilled them in the art of aerial combat and cooperation. If they only sent one person into the air, then wasn't this just giving the three brothers an opportunity to gang up on him? Chapter 82, Teamwork. I'm going up too, whispered Gu Yue, informing Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling looked at her with shock, but Gu Yue had already positioned herself in front of him. Tang Wuling used both hands to hold Gu Yue's waist, lifted her up and began to spin. Compared with Shishi, Gu Yue was much lighter. Her waist was so tiny that it seemed like he could lift her up with a single hand and throw her without requiring the aid of her wind element. Gu Yue flew up in hot pursuit after Shishi. Up in the sky, Gu Tianri calmly gave a hand signal. Towards the oncoming Shishi, he avoided direct combat with him. With a flap of his wings, he curbed his forward momentum and stopped violently in the air. Their greatest advantage was their ability to fly. They were unafraid when they were up in the sky. The best chance for their attack to have a great impact would be the moment Shishi began to fall back down. Yi Yingrong glanced at the side and gave Wu Zhangkong a look. The scene before them was simply a reckless charge by the students of Class 5. They had flown up when they didn't have the ability to fly, eliminating any advantages they might have had on the ground. Soon, the three Gu brothers would discover the perfect opportunity for a successful strike. She had observed their match the day before. Out of the three from Class 5, Tang Wuling's martial soul was merely blue silver brass. Although his strength was considerable, it was merely that and nothing more. Gu Yue seemed to have control over the earth, so why was she up in the air? The only participant that seemed to be a threat to them was Shishi as an agility system battle soul master, yet he too didn't have the ability to fly. The natural thing to do when competing against a flying soul master was to stay on the ground and wait for the right moment to strike. break. This was because a soul master, upon releasing their martial soul, would continuously deplete their soul power. A flying soul master's soul power depletion was far greater than that of a normal soul master. With sufficient patience, Class 5 Steam would have had some chance of winning the match. Yet, they seemed to have become reckless at this moment. Their sudden charge into the air gave the Gu brothers a chance to surround them in the skies. It could be said that their success was assured. In Yu Yingrong's eyes, however, Wu Zhangkong seemed as cool as usual. It wasn't possible to read his thoughts from his unchanged expression. Was he not at all concerned with the match's result? Gu Tianri retreated as Shishi sped through the air. He backed up to a height that superseded Shishi's. It seemed that the force from Tang Wulin's throw had begun to wane, and Shishi was going to fall. At this time, a sudden flash of blue light appeared beneath Shishi's feet. With a twist of his body, Shishi's feet tapped against the blue light and, with some borrowed energy, he sprang towards Gu Tianri like an arrow. This change was too abrupt. Gu Tianri, who had been waiting for the right opportunity, was caught off guard and froze. A match was ever-changing. If any of the participants were to relax for even a moment, it may result in them losing the whole fight. Gu Tianyu and Gu Tianming were positioned to the sides. When they sighted their eldest brother struggling to avoid his opponent, they flew to his aid. The two of them flapped their wings and activated their first soul skill. Their first soul skill wasn't great at all and had no offensive might. It merely increased their speed. Gu Yue was currently halfway up the air. It had been her ice ball which had helped change Shishi's direction a few moments ago. Right now, she saw Gu Tianyu and Gu Tianming trying to reinforce Gu Tianri, and it made her sneer in disdain. She lifted both hands and two icicles were held at the two Gu brothers. Gu Tianyu and Gu Tianming both had good control of their aerial abilities. When they sighted the icicles, they hurriedly tried to avoid the attack. More icicles, however, continued to form in Gu Yue's hands, and as she held them, it left the brothers without a chance to aid Gu Tianri. Shishi's speed was quick. As he flew through the air, his light dragon dagger was released. A golden ray of light was then shot out. Gu Tianri wanted to descend and evade his charge, but his escape route was blocked by this light dragon blade. Shishi was then before Gu Tianri, who was at his wit's end. He tried to kick at Shishi in the hopes of knocking him away. Keeping his knife to the side, Shishi pulled at Gu Tianri's leg with his left hand. Like a mirage, he leapt and tapped Gu Tianri on the head with the flat of his light dragon dagger. He then stepped onto Gu Tianri's shoulder and jumped, flying through the air like a huge bird towards Gu Tianyu, who wasn't far from his current location. Out, Gu Tianri. Long Henshu was positioned on the ground and had a clear view of the match. He announced that Gu Tianri was out. Just a moment ago, if Shishi had the intention to kill, then Gu Tianri's throat would have been slit open. Gu Tianri wasn't persuaded, but before long he witnessed a shocking sight. 3 bundles of blue light appeared before Shishi. Following these tracks, Shishi connected himself to those 3 points and, while flipping thrice in the air, closed in on Gu Tianyu's location. It was only now that Gu Yue began to descend from the air. Her body sparkled with a green light. It was rather distinct that it allowed her to descend at a much slower pace than what should have naturally happened. It had been only a few breaths of time since the start of the match, yet the match's progress had left its audience dumbfounded. Gu Yue and Shishi's marvelous combination made it seem as though it was as easy for them to fight in the air as it was to fight on the ground. The Gu brothers were obviously not well matched when competing with Shishi at close range. Gu Tianming, on the other side of the field from them, could only look on helplessly with clenched teeth. With a sudden about-face, he flapped his wings and charged at Gu Yue, who was slowly descending to the ground. He had to defeat someone at the very least. Then he could fly up and eliminate the chances of being attacked any further. Gu Yue had produced those 3 ice balls as she descended, but she was in no rush. She didn't even bother to look at Gu Tianming. A blue light flashed at her waist. As soon as Gu Tianming neared her, her body shifted to the side in an instant. A figure on the floor moved and caught her. At the same time, Gu Tianming only felt a tightening around his waist before he found that his body was being pulled down from the air. Shishi descended from the air by standing atop Gu Tianyu's shoulders. With his light dragon dagger pressed against Gu Tianyu's head, the youth didn't dare to not descend. As for Gu Tianming, he was pulled and thrown down by a well of Tang Wulin's blue silver grass. He collapsed on the ground in a complete mess. Total defeat. They weren't able to even speak about having a rematch. First grade Class 5 wins. When these words left Long Henshu's mouth, they clearly had a note of shock to them. If one were to speak of the victory of the previous day, then one would discuss the individual capabilities of the first grade's Class 5 team. If one were to speak of today's match, then it would be teamwork that won in the game. The Gu brothers, who were supposedly better at teamwork, had looked down upon their opponents and thus failed to unleash the full extent of their true abilities as a unit of triplets. On the contrary, Tang Wulin's group of 3 had won the match by giving surprises, one after another. This was how the match ended. What was more astounding was Gu Yue's display of her ice element abilities. Wasn't it the earth element in the previous match? Was this twin martial souls? That was a prodigy among prodigies, especially so when considering the circumstances surrounding elements. Long Henshu's heart was full of regrets. He'd been fooled by Wu Zhangkong into letting such a prodigy enter Class 5. This time around, he would be in deep trouble because of this class promotion tournament. He was unclear if Class 1 would be able to prevent them from winning. Yi Yingrong was stunned as well. She trained the Gu brothers for the past few months now and told herself that the triplets were practically in unison when in the air. Aside from their slightly weaker attack power, their speed, teamwork, and flight capabilities were perfect in helping them gain the upper hand in matches. But this had caught them off guard. Under the circumstances where they were bound to win the match, their opponents had been able to exhibit such tacit coordination. Gu Yue's few ice balls were held at just the right time and gained them several advantages. Shishi had fully utilized his agility system battle soulmaster capabilities, and this was on the premise that he couldn't fly. He had succeeded in making several transformations in the air and borrowed force from those 3 ice balls. His ability to do this and his control over his body was at the peak. Yi Yingrong took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. Smiling, she turned towards Wu Zhangkong and said, "Congratulations, Teacher Wu. You will be in Class 3 now." Wu Zhangkong answered mildly, "That is not my goal. Please excuse me." As he finished, he made a slight turn towards the trio leaving the stage and swept them a glance before walking over to the dormitory building without any words or comments. "Is Teacher Wu pleased with us or not?" Shishi suspiciously asked this of Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin shrugged. "How would I know? I'm guessing that we'll need to summarize the fight, though." Gu Yue nodded her head. "We shouldn't have attacked first. Instead, we could have waited for a chance. If we had stayed on the ground and defended that position, they would have had to attack us. Naturally, they'd then reach a distance that makes it comfortable for us to attack them. Once they come down, they wouldn't stand a chance. With their flying martial souls, we wouldn't have any chance if they decided to flee, but for this match they stood no chance. We shouldn't be so rash next time." Chapter 83, Guang Biao. Shishi looked towards Tang Wulin. "Wulin, it's just as she said, you were too impulsive. I'm not someone you can simply pick up after all. I don't know what kind of temper you have, but I just won't stand and bear it." Tang Wulin sincerely said to Gu Yue, "It was our first time facing flying soul masters, so I really did act impulsively. I'm sorry." Shishi said in shock, "Hey, I think your temperament is a bit too good now. She's criticizing you yet you still so easily apologized." Gu Yue laughed. "PFFF, it's no use trying to drive a wedge between us. If someone points out a small mistake, then acknowledge your faults and change. Even if they point out a major mistake, then you should still maintain a gentleman's elegance. Do you think everyone is as petty as you? Wulin, I'll treat you to dinner at the first window tonight. Only 1 meal though." Tang Wulin smiled. "Sounds good. Even a housefly is considered me. Let's go then. I'm already hungry." Yi Yingrong watched the trio head off for the dining hall, dumbstruck with silence. Even if she possessed extraordinary self-restraint, at that moment, her mouth couldn't help but twitch at the corner. The opposing party hadn't been focusing on how to deal with them at all. Rather, they had devised a plan on the spot to counter her class's representatives. What did this mean? It meant that everything they did on stage had been improvised. But why was their coordination so deep? She took out a soul communicator from her pocket and punched in a number. Soon after, a pure, cold female voice was heard. "What is it, little sister?" Yi Yingrong said. "Big sister, we lost." "You lost? Don't tell me that the opponents were also flying soul masters." Yi Yingrong forced out a bitter laugh and said, "Not at all. It's just that their coordination is exceptional and their team is comprised of outstanding individuals. Big sister, you need to be careful. Your Class 1 might run into worthy opponents this time. The students of that icily arrogant Prince Charming aren't easy to handle. You definitely need to be prepared." The soul communicator went silent for a moment before the clear and cold voice returned with a firmness behind it. "I've been waiting a long time for this day. That time, he had humiliated me, but this time I'll return the favor. Big sister, you." Yi Yingrong didn't have the chance to finish speaking before her sister hung up. Yi Yingrong let out a helpless sigh as she spoke to the air. You really are too competitive. He wasn't in the wrong when he rejected you that time, yet you've held a grudge for 2 years already. After eating dinner, she suggested that they head out of the academy to play a game, but was promptly refused by Tang Wulin. His reason was simple. He wanted to go cultivate instead. Soul power was the foundation for everything. This was the first and most important lesson Wu Zhangkong drilled into their heads in their first theory class. Moreover, there were no shortcuts to improving one's soul power. The only way to improve was through constant meditation. Tang Wulin refusal to go caused Shishi to lose his own drive to go out and play. Thus, he decided to meditate like Tang Wulin, doing his best to strive towards getting his second ring. Sadly, only a few moments passed before their door was suddenly thrown open. Zhou's Hanxi ran in. It's not good. Shishi, Wulin, hurry up and come see. A group of people are at the academy gates. Their boss seems to be quite powerful too. And, they're holding a picture of you two and Dou Yue. They're calling for the academy to hand you three over to them. I'm afraid the teachers will come out soon. Tang Wulin had just begun meditating and had yet to completely enter a meditative state, so he immediately opened his eyes once he heard those words. Sitting on the opposite side, Shishi gave him a glance, and both of their hearts tensed up. Could it be? Go, let's go see. Shishi straightened his back then jumped off his bed. Tang Wulin followed, and the two of them briskly made their way outside. As soon as they left their dormitory, they met Dou Yue. Have you heard? Tang Wulin asked Dou Yue. Dou Yue nodded, but her expression was unperturbed. It should be about what happened yesterday, right? A cold light flickered in Shishi's eyes. Let's go. Having said this, he began walking towards the academy's great gates while dragging Tang Wulin behind him. Hold on. Tang Wulin heavily said. Shishi angrily responded. What are we waiting for? If it's those guys from yesterday, then we'll just beat them up again, bullying people into paying a protection fee. Yet those thieves still dare to come to the academy and cry thief. Tang Wulin firmly grabbed him. Shishi attempted to struggle free, but what kind of strength did Tang Wulin have? Tang Wulin was firm as he said. Don't be so impulsive. This matter shouldn't be that simple. Don't forget where we are right now. This is East the Academy, a Soul Masters Academy. If they still dare come here despite knowing this, then it would mean that they're confident in their backing. We're still far too weak right now. It would be a better idea to go find Teacher Wu first. As he listened to Tang Wulin's words, Shishi began to regain his calm. He was a smart boy, and no longer had any impulsive thoughts after he understood Tang Wulin's meaning. Dou Yue nodded in agreement. I stand with Wulin on this. We should go find Teacher Wu first. Zhou Zhangxi interjected from behind. This matter caused a large disturbance. There are at least 200 people waiting outside the gates, and they all seem very arrogant. What did you guys do? Tang Wulin answered. I'll tell you later. Let's go. We need to find Teacher Wu first. Wu Zhangkong's schedule was extremely strict. After dinner, he would immediately go meditate, so finding him wasn't difficult at all. Wu Zhangkong, clothed in a traditional white changpao, opened the door. When he saw that his visitors were Tang Wulin's trio, he coldly asked, what cultivation questions do you have? Although Shishi also had an icy arrogance in him, when he faced Wu Zhangkong he didn't have the guts to say anything. Instead, he looked expectantly at Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin said, Teacher Wu, we've caused some trouble. Although he was a bit nervous, he still summoned up his courage and retold the events of what occurred the night before. Wu Zhangkong finished listening with an indifferent expression, then coldly said, it seems you guys actually have some ability. Having said this, he walked over. His white changpao seemed delicate and light, and it rustled in the wind. His hair also drifted up from his shoulders and danced with the wind. This earthly aura carried a hint of pure coldness within it, making others feel as though they were in a dream. Tang Wulin patted the stunned Shishi and woke him from his stupor. The trio followed behind Wu Zhangkong and headed towards the academy's great gates. Outside of East the academy's great gates was an impenetrable crowd of at least 200 fierce and burly-looking people holding all sorts of weapons. Among them were quite a few people holding onto Federation prohibited soul devices. Following the progress of soul technology, soul devices had developed at the point that even ordinary people could use them. Soul masters still had an exalted position, but the gap between them and commoners had been shortened due to technology. Even ordinary people could operate soul makers now. Under a certain level, soul masters weren't that much more powerful than ordinary people with soul devices. This was the reason why those people dared to block the entrance of a soul master academy. On East the academy's side, many students of the intermediate and advanced divisions had crowded near the gates. Faced with those burly men who held up 3 photographs, they were surprised to see that it was Tang Wulin, Shishi, and Dou Yue. A few of the burly men in the front were even carrying a stretcher, upon which lay Guang Long wrapped completely indoors. Another group of people were holding a giant banner, which read, Murder must be paid with life. Debts must be paid. Hand over the culprit. Fortunately, however, this was still a soul masters academy. Even though these burly men were confident in their backing, they didn't dare attack the academy. Their leader stood at over 2 meters tall and possessed an extremely stalwart body. Similar to Guang Long, his head was also shaven, but he had some small sideburns. With this intrepid appearance of his, he seemed like an upgraded version of Guang Long. His bare arms revealed muscles brimming with a terrifying strength. His gloomy eyes continuously swept through the crowd, searching for the 3 people in the photographs. What kind of people are you, to actually dare to cause trouble in front of the academy? Right at that moment, a furious voice called out. Long Hen Shu appeared with over 10 teachers trailing behind him. After seeing the people outside of the gates, his heart tensed up a bit. It was exactly as Tang Wulin had said. Even though they knew this was a Soul Masters Academy, they dared to come because they had some backing. My name is Guang Biao. The one on the stretcher is my younger brother. The shaven-headed man with the stalwart body coldly stated. His appearance wasn't as wild as the others, but his gloomy voice was like a thunderclap resounding in everyone's ears. Such powerful soul power. This bastard's cultivation is. Long Hen Shu's pupils contracted as he tensed up. He suddenly remembered this name. Guang Biao? You are the captain of East City's Mecha Brigade? That Guang Biao? Every single city had their own armed forces. Apart from the police force which kept order in the city, there was also their military force. East City was a major coastal city, thus the Federation had deployed 500 soul mecha here to form a mecha brigade. Chapter 84, 10,000-year soul ring. A mecha brigade was at the master regiment rank, and it was merely a rank lower than that of East City's chief executive. At the same time, there existed no subordinate relationship between these 2 ranks. Long Hen Shu's face changed color immediately when he found out that this huge, stoic figure was Guang Biao. Even if East City's chief executive was here right now, he wouldn't have the ability to command Guang Biao. I have not come as the mecha brigade captain, but merely as an elder brother with a seriously injured younger brother. Bring out the culprits who caused this. Guang Biao commanded coolly. Chief Guang Biao, I believe there must be some misunderstandings here. Long Hen Shu spoke in a much more harmonious tone. There are actually 3 children in your photograph. It can't be that your brother was wounded by those 3 children. Long Hen Shu had clear knowledge that Guang Biao was not someone to be trifled with. He was someone who had control of a mecha brigade. This meant that all those burly men behind him were all mecha masters. Although ordinary people could also become a mecha master, this was rarely seen. The majority of mecha masters were soul masters. Even if their ranks weren't high, they still had rich combat experience and extraordinary control of soul devices. In front of such people, their academy really couldn't contend with them, not to mention that the other side could also mobilize mecha. Long Hen Shu had also heard of Guang Biao's life. The captain was a legendary figure in his own right. He was from an ordinary family and both of his parents had died when he was a child. Relying on his own talent, as well as his hard work, he had managed to reach his current position at the age of 35. With the position of captain and a soul power cultivation of 6 rings, he was a true soul emperor. His mecha master rank had also reached emperor rank. As for the entire East Academy, the only one with a soul power cultivation of soul emperor would be misunderstandings. Children. My brother had been beaten up so badly. As his older brother, it is natural for me to investigate this matter. That will be done at my end. However, stop your nonsense and hand over these people. I have given East City enough face by waiting here. If you do not hand over those people in 20 minutes, then we shall go and search for them ourselves. Long Hen Shu's face darkened as he snapped and said, Captain Guang Biao, you shouldn't go overboard. This is an academy, a place for cultivating students. Which of your lot hadn't before graduated from an academy? I will not hand over the people you seek. If you have the ability, then activate your mecha and step over my dead body. Otherwise, don't think of taking one step into East the Academy. The students who were normally critical of Director Long's stern ways now felt their blood boil as they watched this scene. Some senior students even stepped forward of their own accord and stood behind Long Henshu. Guang Biao suddenly took a step forward. When his foot landed, a deep roar was heard, as if the ground beneath the whole of East Sea Academy trembled from it. The student standing at the front swayed on the spot and fell over. I only believe in strength. Do you all think your students will be able to block me? Where is your sense of righteousness when you decline to hand over the culprits who had wounded my brother so badly? I have tried to talk reason with you, but since my fist is bigger, I shall just go and find those I seek. I'll see then who has the ability to stop me. At this moment, an ice-cold voice sounded from the academy. I dislike talking about reasoning the most. Talking with our fists is much better. The spectators only felt a blur before them as a person appeared in front of East Sea Academy. Clothed in a white changpao, the person's inky green eyes sparkled as coral blue hair fell down his back. An air of arrogance surrounded him as he stood there, the temperature seemingly decreasing by a few degrees. The feeling was most clear for Guang Biao. When this person appeared, the powerful momentum he had built up just a few moments ago had broken apart, as though it collided against a glacier. Teacher Wu. It's Teacher Wu. Some of the students on East Sea Academy's side had begun to cheer him on. Who are you? Guang Biao's eyes narrowed as he tried to rebuild his momentum. Wu Zhangkong mildly said, those 3 students you are seeking are my students. If you can defeat me, you may proceed. Otherwise, get lost. His voice was frigid, without any feelings behind it. He spoke as if his sentence was a stated fact. Ha 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 ha. Good, I haven't met someone who dared to speak to me in this manner before. You've piqued my interest. Although Guang Biao was smiling, a flame burned furiously within him. A strong ray of yellow light flowed from his body. Yellow, yellow, purple, 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 purple. 6 soul rings appeared from beneath him. Soul Emperor, 6-ring Soul Emperor. A sudden exclamation broke out within the student body. As he released his martial soul, Guang Biao grew a good half meter. A metal grey sheen had appeared from his forehead, spreading to his shoulders and upper torso, and then the rest of his body. It was as if he had been encapsulated by a layer of armor. At this very instant, 3 clusters of lights appeared, 2 yellow and 1 purple. The 2 yellow lights seemed to be in the shape of a lizard and were identical. As for the purple light, it seemed to be a huge python. Purple, a 1,000-year spirit soul. There was no doubt that those 6 soul rings were produced by these 3 spirit souls. Only elites could possess a 1,000-year spirit soul in the world of soul masters. Guang Biao's martial soul was similarly an armored dragon, but the aura it emitted out was far more powerful than Guang Long, and it gave off a feeling that this armored dragon was a mountain too massive to be conquered. Strong momentum formed into something like a tornado that roared towards Wu Zhangkong, blowing up his long blue tresses. At this moment, all of the spectators on grounds felt a sudden chill in their bodies, as if the winter had descended. Guang Biao had caught sight of a pale blue flash. Then the rage of this tornado was halved before it disappeared. Wu Zhangkong stood in the same spot, his white robes afloat, right hand was raised in the air. A pale blue long sword had appeared within his hand. Sword tipped like an autumn spring. The sword's light flowed like a waterfall. White clothes, blue sword, floating in the air like an immortal. Within the East Sea Academy's assembly ground, only a handful had witnessed him fighting before. As such, all of the spectators had their attention focused on that sword. Rings of light appeared from beneath the sword's hilt. These soul rings weren't great in size, but wandered about along the sword's body. Yet, it were the colors of these soul rings that made them bright and eye-catching. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, black. Yes, the last 2 soul rings were black. Black represented 10,000 years. Those were, indeed, 10,000-year soul rings. The air seemed to still, the sky frozen with the appearance of this sword. Wu Zhangkong stood quietly in the same spot, but Guang Biao's previous violent momentum turned to stone. 10,000-year soul rings. How was that possible? How could they be 10,000-year soul rings? Chapter 85, White Robes and Blue Sword, Sky Ice and Snow Cold. Guang Biao stared at Wu Zhangkong with a dumbstruck expression. Ever since the extinction of soul beasts, very rarely would 10,000-year soul rings appear. Even for the spirit pagoda, wasn't it exceedingly difficult to manufacture 10,000-year spirit souls? But how? How could he have 10,000-year soul rings? What was his true identity? As he was able to obtain 10,000-year soul rings at such a young age, this pressure clearly had an effect on Guang Biao. While his impulsive side was excited when facing a soul emperor possessing 2 10,000-year soul rings, he was no longer certain of his victory. Wu Zhangkong didn't even bother to look at him. Instead, he just lowered his head and stared at the long sword in his hand. Skyfrost sword, that was the name of his martial soul. It had been ages since the last time he'd used it. He had already condensed his spiritual power into his martial soul long ago. Its reappearance was like reuniting with an old friend. His expression no longer possessed its usual cold indifference. Instead, it held a trace of foolishness in it at that moment. It almost seemed as if he were looking at his own lover, a gaze as tender as water. How? Guang Biao bellowed at the sky. He had already been forced into a corner. If he were to back down in front of all his subordinates, they would think he was a weakling. How would he be able to lead them then? This was the reason why he couldn't back down from this battle now. His first soul ring lit up, causing his armored body to burst with a metallic light. Armored dragon body. Guang Biao suddenly pushed off with his left foot, sweeping towards Wu Zhangkong like a hurricane. 1. At his rank, regardless of whether it were his speed or power, they were both extremely terrifying. His large fist swung upwards as he straightened his body. If one was struck by this fist, they would likely be on the brink of death. Wu Zhangkong was looking at his Skyfrost sword just as before, without a single movement in response. The armored dragon's fist was like a hurricane, its figure massive. At this moment, nothing could disturb the powerful Guang Biao's mind. Teacher, be careful. Tang Wuling called out from afar. Right at that moment, Wu Zhangkong stirred. He rotated his right hand, causing all 6 soul rings to vanish from his Skyfrost sword simultaneously. Gently raising the tip of his sword, he met the mountain-like fist head-on. Ding 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 ding. A succession of brittle notes rang out. When the first sound rang out, Guang Biao, whose power was like that of a tyrant dragon, was stopped. The following crisp notes had been his scales flying off one after another. In the end, even with his powerful body, he had been forced back a step. He wanted to resist, to release an even stronger amount of soul power. But when that Skyfrost sword touched his fist, an icy sword chi penetrated into his body through. The sword chi was like a needle that followed along the veins and into his body, forcing him to gather all of his soul power in order to mount a defense against it. How could he possibly use a soul skill under such circumstances? 7 brittle notes rang out and he retreated 7 steps. Yet it seemed as though Wu Zhangkong had only sent out 1 sword strike. A blue ray flashed out from his body at the moment of collision. Wu Zhangkong's lofty aura unexpectedly possessed an extremely dense quality to it. His deep green eyes suddenly turned purple, and a purple light blossomed from his pupils as he thrust forth his Skyfrost sword. This was a simple movement that couldn't be made any simpler. From start to finish, Wu Zhangkong's eyes had never left his Skyfrost sword. When he thrust out his sword, however, Guang Biao felt as though something within his body had been set aflame. At that moment, extremely cold sword chi burst forth one after another as Guang Biao felt his mind growing slower and slower, his blood beginning to freeze. Moreover, that powerful martial soul he had relied upon to climb to his current position was completely unable to protect him. It was as if the armored dragon had completely abandoned him. Guang Biao's purple snake spirit soul finally stirred, causing its powerful body to expand. Silver scales sprouted from the spirit soul's purple body and its tail whipped out at Wu Zhangkong from the side. It had to attack the enemy to save its master. All of the onlookers were shocked when they saw that Wu Zhangkong didn't even bother to dodge. That was right, he didn't budge even the slightest bit. And as your light saw out as his eyes continued to release a purple light, unexpectedly, he just let the 1,000-year spirit soul attack him directly. Gee. A soft sound was heard. At that winning moment, the blue aura around Wu Zhangkong's body clearly became stronger. When his aura intensified, everyone else saw a change. They felt as though Wu Zhangkong's entire body had become a sword, one that was exactly identical to the Skyfrost sword in his hand. The purple snake spirit soul's tail was whipping towards the tip of that sword. A purple light swept past, yet was cleanly cut. The spirit soul released a blood-curdling screech as its body's luster dimmed. Moreover, in that moment, the Skyfrost sword had already arrived in front of Guang Biao. Guang Biao tightly clenched his teeth. Right now, he couldn't use his martial soul's power anymore. His opponent's tyrannical and extreme cold sword chi had killed his connection with his martial soul. He sluggishly pondered over what he could do. In the end, he could only raise his hands to face the attack in front of him and circulate all of his soul power to his palms. Who? The blue light slowed to a stop. It stopped right in front of Guang Biao's nose, but the ice cold air emitting from it seemed as if it had created a net of swords, giving off an aura of death that covered his entire body. His palms had already been impaled and had changed to the same light blue color as the Skyfrost sword. Your eyes. You're from that place. Guang Biao said in astonishment. It was clear that he had lost control of himself as his voice quivered. It was uncertain whether this was due to the extreme cold or fear. Wu Zhangkong indifferently said, I was expelled from there because of my temper. So, don't let me see you again. The blue light vanished, and it seemed as if a blue stream of air flowed towards Wu Zhangkong and condensed within his body. His Skyfrost sword disappeared without a trace, and he had long since turned around, walking back towards East Academy. A trace of ice cold chi that had drilled into Guang Biao's body now flocked back towards Wu Zhangkong. White clothed, blue sword, sky ice and snow cold. Wu Zhangkong. Chapter 86. White clothes and blue sword, sky ice and snow cold. 2. After the disappearance of Wu Zhangkong, the whole area stayed in deep silence, as if everyone's voices had frozen, regardless of whether they were teachers or students of East Academy, or mecha masters of the Mecha Brigade. What had just happened was too shocking. This was a match between 6 ring soul emperors. They had seen a 1,000-year spirit soul, but also the appearance of 10,000-year soul rings. What was unclear was that while both sides were at the same level, why was Wu Zhangkong able to defeat Guang Biao with 2 sword strikes? Since Guang Biao was the captain of the Mecha Brigade, his battle experience and cultivation had to be suitably high for the position. Even if Wu Zhangkong had better soul rings, he shouldn't have lost that quickly. The disparity could be because their martial souls had a great difference, or Wu Zhangkong had a much greater level of battle experience than him, as well as some other special aspects. Prince Charming. An unknown female shriek was heard, and East Academy turned into a sea of cheers almost immediately. Students from the intermediate and advanced academy began cheering Wu Zhangkong's name, especially so from class 5. Each and every one of its students had a flushed face, and stood with their chests raised proudly, except the child prodigy Shishi. Most of those allocated to class 5 wouldn't feel good about their circumstances, right? Yet, Wu Zhangkong's brows this match had given the students of class 5 a sense of fulfillment. Amidst the teachers, Yingrong looked at Wu Zhangkong, her beautiful eyes glazed. She murmured, Sister, I didn't like his icy looks initially. Although he is handsome, he's like ice. Yet, it seems that I've fallen for him. He's handsome enough to forget those flaws. By Yingrong's side was a woman about her age that didn't seem all that different in looks from her. Currently, her eyes were also glazed over. 6 rings. He really has 6 ring. I had previously thought I had a chance of pursuing him, but it seems I will never be able to get my revenge on him. From what he has shown just now, it seems he'd be able to duel and beat a 7 ring soul sage. There's no doubt that he is from that place. Yi Yingrong turned and looked towards her elder sister beside her. She spoke with a bitter smile. Sister, aren't you too vindictive? Yi Yingluo's beautiful eyes burned with stubbornness. No one has ever rejected me. He was the first. He shall pay the price for that. Guang Biao stood frozen at the same spot for over 10 minutes. It was only then that the chill within his body began to slowly disappear. His pulse then regained its normalcy, and his soul power and martial soul returned. Blood started to drip out of the wounds on both his hands. A wave of fear flashed through his eyes as he looked down at his palms. That guy is terrifying. He definitely isn't a nobody. Captain, what about us? A man with a similarly valiant build rushed up to Guang Biao and mumbled, Shall we activate our soul devices and mecha? Guang Biao raised his hand and sent the man staggering. Bullshit. If you want to die, don't drag me along. Trying to wipe away today's matter is already difficult. If we also activate our soul devices and mecha, do you think we'll survive? Go back. Guang Biao gave a deep sigh as he looked at his younger brother, who still lay on the stretcher. If it was somebody else, he wouldn't have stepped in and meddled with their matters. It didn't take much thought for him to know that this matter would trace back to him from East City's administrative department. Yet, this was his younger brother's matter. He doted on his younger brother greatly. He was the elder of the 2 Guang brothers, and had been gifted with extraordinary strength since childhood. Guang Long had a similar talent as well, but it was difficult for their poor family to also support him. Even though Guang Long performed well at the academy, he couldn't fuse with the spirit soul, so that process had been delayed. Guang Biao tried to help his younger brother at all costs. He hoped that with his aid, Guang Long would be able to fuse with the spirit soul. Yet, he'd already grown past the best age, so it was all too late. Thus, Guang Biao always felt a strong guilt towards Guang Long. Guang Long had since become a broken jar and collected protection money and got into drunken brawls, becoming a criminal. With the backing of Guang Biao, he was regarded as a lawless existence within East City. Since he had suffered such a great loss, Guang Biao had become furious and had brought his troops along to stir up some trouble. Yet, it had ended like this. They had collided against a metal wall. Tang Wolin, Shishi, and Gu Yue were taken back to their dorms by a wave of ice-cold soul power. Return and continue training. Wu Zhangkong sounded as icy as usual. Teacher, aren't you going to blame us? Tang Wolin couldn't help but ask Wu Zhangkong this since it had been them who caused this mess. Wu Zhangkong gave him a quick glance. Did all of you do anything wrong? Why would I blame you guys? Return to your training. You are not allowed to leave the academy during the night anymore. Rest days included. Yes. Wu Zhangkong walked away, and Tang Wolin's trio went back to their respective dorm rooms. Wolin, I'm still trembling slightly. What just happened? Shishi gripped onto Tang Wolin's arm tightly. He was indeed still trembling. Tang Wolin questioned him suspiciously. Are you cold? Shishi's eyes shone brightly. No, not cold. I'm excited. I never knew that soul masters could be so powerful. Did you feel anything? During the moment Teacher Wu drew out his sword, it was as though the surroundings had changed, freezing with its appearance. That's an expert, a true expert. It would be amazing if I could be as powerful as Teacher Wu one day. Tang Wolin slapped his hand and snapped. Then we should quickly get back to meditating. You're almost at rank 20. Do you still not know how to work hard? Shishi answered him doubtfully. Weren't you excited when you watched the scene just now? Tang Wolin replied plainly. Yes, I was. But what good does it do me? Teacher Wu had also slowly trained himself to be where he is now. We can only train hard as well. Shishi rolled his eyes. I'm defeated by you. You can go meditate. I'll stay excited for a while more. Giving him a helpless smile, Tang Wolin got back onto his bed and into a meditation position. How could he not be excited? It was the opposite. He was probably even more excited than Shishi. Only he kept it deep within him and didn't let it show. Grow stronger. I want to grow stronger. Tang Wolin took in a deep breath, his mind focusing on the image of Wu Zhangkong's 2 sword strikes. With that, he started his meditation. That pair of sword strikes from his teacher was just too amazing. It had almost felt like an alien energy. He recalled how Wu Zhangkong seemed to draw on his mind and heart when he attacked with those 2 sword strikes. It was as if Wu Zhangkong had turned into the center of the universe and had wielded that universe in the fight against Guang Biao. It might be that for others, Wu Zhangkong's second sword strike was the most shocking. When his Skyfrost sword had emitted that ice-cold sword chi, it gave off a momentum that seemed as though it could shatter a forest of bamboo. Yet, to Tang Wolin, it had been that first sword strike that left him shocked. Chapter 87. I have a dragon in my body. When Wu Zhangkong lifted his blade and pointed it to the ground, it was done in a gentle and free motion, without a trace of forcefulness behind it. In that situation, Tang Wolin hadn't been able to clearly see what happened next. Yet, when Wu Zhangkong's Skyfrost sword touched Guang Biao's fist, he could clearly hear a sorrowful dragon's roar echo within his mind. Moreover, this dragon's roar reverberated continuously. As one scale flew off that fist, one after another, that pained dragon's roar caused his mind to tremble. He felt as though Wu Zhangkong's attack had actually been targeting himself. In fact, after the scales flew off, he could even feel the chilling sword chi that had entered Guang Biao's body, and the suffering it caused to his martial soul. In that moment, Tang Wulin's heart trembled, and another voice appeared within the depths of his mind. That voice had been in extreme rage, and the burning, hot sensation he felt when he was stabbed by the light dragon dagger appeared once more. Although it was only for a brief moment, and it hadn't caused his body to transform, it still made him greatly shocked. From the moment the power first appeared to now, it seems to have been appearing more and more frequently. Tang Wulin realized that his body seemed to be hiding some sort of secret deep within it. Moreover, this secret likely had something to do with the mutation of his blue silver brass. With this thought in mind, Tang Wulin's heart couldn't help but stir restlessly. Normally, it would be very easy for him to enter a state of meditation, yet today, he couldn't keep a tranquil state of mind for a long time. Yan Xiao and Zhou's Hangxi had already returned to the dorm. Despite being normally calm, Yan Xiao was in high spirits as he discussed with Zhou's Hangxi and Shishi about Wu Zhangkong's two sword attacks and his charm. Tang Wulin could hear their discussion. As he attempted to enter a meditative state, his mind was gradually filled with more and more distracting thoughts. That continuous dragon's roar had excited his body. It seemed that something special was growing within his body. Gradually, his consciousness became hazy, and the dragon's constant roaring died down. It seemed that he was finally entering a meditative state. He gently circulated his soul power. The others were already meditating at this time, so they didn't see the golden vein pattern appear on Tang Wulin's tailbone. A scorching heat suddenly enveloped his body, causing his entire being to start trembling. His brows were knitted, as if he were in extreme pain. Darkness. It was pitch black darkness. Nothing could be seen through this darkness. Tang Wulin discovered that he had arrived in a pitch black world. Suddenly, a golden light appeared off in the distance. The golden light was simply too dazzling, and he couldn't help but give it all of his attention. The golden light drew closer and closer, causing its enormous size to become more apparent the closer it came. When Tang Wulin could finally and clearly see what it was, he was shocked to discover that it was actually a gigantic golden dragon. The golden dragon had 5 claws, and its entire body was covered in large golden scales. A pair of horns sprouted from its head, and its form serpentine. Why did he know it was a dragon? It was clearly different from the dragons on the continent. It didn't have any wings and it had 5 claws under its belly. Yet, how did he know it was a dragon? The golden light suddenly blossomed, giving Tang Wulin the feeling of one looking down upon the land. When he lowered his own head, he could see his body. At this moment, his body seemed somewhat illusory. He was standing atop an azure tiled floor, and it seemed that he was in an enormous hall. Floating up in the air within this hall was that gigantic golden dragon. Compared to before, he could see much more clearly now. Tang Wulin was amazed to discover that the dragon was over 100 meters long and had 18 rings of light around it. Every single ring of light emitted a limpid blue radiance. He didn't know why, but when Tang Wulin saw this blue light, the first thing he thought of was actually his own blue silver brass. You've arrived at last. At that moment, a pure, cold voice resounded throughout the hall. In an instant, the entire hall was lit up by golden radiance, which then condensed in the center into a human form. The form's body was very transparent, and it was impossible to make out his exact appearance. It was almost as if his body was made purely of light and shadows. Who are you? What is this place? Am I dreaming? Tang Wulin asked. Maybe you are. I don't know who I am either. That golden silhouette's voice seemed to be at a loss. I am just a thread of divine consciousness. I am a thread of divine consciousness dedicated to guiding you. You could say that this is a dream of yours, but you could also say that it's a part of your body. Tang Wulin was only 9 years old after all, so his curiosity was much greater than his fear. He curiously asked, so you're saying I have a dragon in my body? The golden figure said, it isn't just a dragon, but a dragon king. To be more precise, it is the soul one of the golden dragon king. Tang Wulin asked in awe, is it my martial soul? No, the golden figure answered. In a certain sense, it is a disaster for you. This is because the golden dragon king's energy is too strong, so your weak body cannot bear it. If its energy should ever break loose, you will die. Die. Tang Wulin was dumbfounded. He was still young and had never expected to face the concept of death so soon. If he died, then what would happen to his mother and father? He wouldn't be able to go search for Naya either. Will I definitely die? Tang Wulin foolishly asked. If it was certain, then I wouldn't appear here. If you follow my instructions, you will have a chance at life. It will, however, be very difficult for you. The golden figure's voice was soothing. Tang Wulin bit his lip. Then what do I need to do? The golden figure solemnly said, since you have come here, it is proof that you can already sense the soul's power and are beginning to be influenced by it. The golden dragon king possesses the greatest physical strength, so its energy will also affect your body. Doesn't your strength surpass that of ordinary people? Before this, Tang Wulin had still thought it was a dream. Yet, when he heard the golden figure's words, he gradually came to realize that perhaps it wasn't a dream after all. At the very least, this wasn't as simple as a dream. Yes. My strength is much greater than ordinary people, Tang Wulin said honestly. The golden figure said, that is because you're already being influenced by the golden dragon king. The golden dragon king's energy is like a ticking time bomb within your body. It is only because of those 18 seals on its almighty body that you are still able to live. In order to solve this issue, you can only rely on yourself. The golden dragon king's power is immense, but those 18 seals restrict its strength sequentially. In order to live, you must undo those seals one by one in order to gradually assimilate the golden dragon king's energy. The day you are able to completely assimilate all of its energy is the day when you are truly safe. Assimilate. How do I assimilate its energy? Tang Wulin urgently asked. Not the same kind of soul as martial soul. Chapter 88. This isn't a dream. The golden light said, if you have made it here, then it is proof you have the foundation necessary to assimilate the energy of the first seal. In order for you to absorb the soul one of the golden dragon king, you must first be physically strong. Secondly, you will also need external help. For your first seal, you will need to find 3 objects. These 3 objects can be used to help increase your physical strength. I have been awakened, so I will wait for you to prepare these 3 objects. When you apply all 3 of them at the same time, I will then help you break through the power of the first seal. You have to remember, the soul of the golden dragon king has a double-edged effect on your body. When you consume the soul, it will strengthen you. If you take too long to absorb it, however, then the seal will not be able to continue its suppression of the soul. You will die once you reach 10 years of age. Find those 3 objects, otherwise, I will not be able to withhold the pressure of the first seal. 10 years old? He was only half a year away from his 10th birthday. What are those 3 objects? Tang Wulin hurriedly asked his question. 100-year ice crystal fruit, 100-year scarlet flame fruit, and 10 drops of blood from a 100-year soul beast with a dragon bloodline. Just by hearing those names, Tang Wulin knew that the items would come with a hefty price tag. He hadn't even previously heard the names of those 2 aforementioned fruits, not to mention the 10 drops of blood from a 100-year soul beast, which was even more. Excuse me, but soul beasts are extinct. Where can I find them? Cried Tang Wulin, his expression stunned. The golden light quieted down for a moment, as if in thought. It then answered in a glum-sounding voice. I do not know as well. I can only tell you what information I have. As to how you are to be able to do this, or how you accomplish it, that is your problem to solve. I cannot help you figure this out. I can only remind you that you must break the first seal and absorb the suppressed soul by 10 years of age. Otherwise, you will die. When you have found these objects, enter a meditative state once more and focus on the image of a dragon. I will then escort you here. Now, I shall bring you out of this place. Please wait. Tang Wulin hurriedly pleaded. I am only a thread of divine consciousness, and there is a limit to how long I can stay here. Please stop prolonging my stay. The golden light sounded severe as it spoke. Tang Wulin asked, why do scales appear when I'm in contact with certain objects? Like when I was stabbed by Shishi's light dragon dagger? Does this have something to do with the golden dragon king? The golden light replied, yes. When your blood makes contact with other dragon-type objects or beings, the power of the golden dragon king will temporarily appear. You cannot control this power as you have yet to break the seal. Therefore, you must find these 3 objects quickly. Tang Wulin had much more to ask, but his surroundings suddenly distorted and began to spin. He woke the next moment. His body was soaked in sweat, and he felt an unspeakable pain. He also clearly felt that his high body temperature had begun to cool. Was it a dream or not a dream? No, it was not. If it wasn't for his previous experiences, then he would have thought it were a kind of dreamland. Yet, was it truly as simple as a dream? If it were a dream, then why did it feel so real to him? Why did golden scales appear when he was stabbed by the light dragon dagger? Why was he so weak and ordinary when he was young, yet had become so much stronger after his martial soul awakened? But if it wasn't a dream, then why was there a dragon soul within his body that was constantly endangering his life? That golden figure of light had said that although this was a crisis, it was also an opportunity to absorb the soul of a dragon. What would he become then? There were numerous questions in his head, and the golden light's explanations didn't answer them. Shaking his head forcefully, he calmed his thoughts and got out of bed. He went to the washing room in order to clean his body and then changed into dry clothes. After that, he went back to bed, calm. I have to be calm, he said to himself. As he took in a deep breath, Tang Wulin's eyes became focused. At least 2 points could be summarized. First, there truly was a dragon soul in his body and it was a threat to his life until he could absorb it. Second, if he could absorb the dragon soul, then his strength would gradually become even stronger. Thus, the first thing he had to do was find those 3 objects the golden light had mentioned to him. After that, he would then try to absorb the power suppressed by the first seal. Only when he tried it could he understand what it was. If he absorbed the soul, could he then control the power of those scales? He was only 9 years old, and his mindset wasn't too mature yet. The concept of death to him wasn't as terrible as what adults thought. Even if his heart did have fear, the fear wasn't that strong. 100-year ice crystal fruit, 100-year scarlet flame fruit, 10 drops of blood from a dragon-type soul beast. Merely the names of those objects gave him the impression that they were not commonly found. Where could he find them? With a belly filled with helplessness, Tang Wulin restarted his meditation. This time around, he successfully entered a meditative state. Morning arrived and the 4 occupants of the dorm woke up, appearing fully recharged. Let's go. Willeen, let's go eat. Shishi jumped off his bed. Tang Willeen answered him helplessly. You haven't even washed yourself. Hey. I'm a little hungry. Let's go wash ourselves quickly. Tang Willeen spoke up. Shishi, I have something to ask. Have you heard of some objects called an ice crystal fruit and a scarlet flame fruit? Shishi was stunned when he heard Tang Willeen. Ice crystal fruit. Scarlet flame fruit. Of course I've heard of them. Aren't those ordinary spirit fruits? You can easily find them in the marketplace. They're fruits that are very effective in nourishing martial souls with ice and fire properties. Your martial soul is plant type though, so aren't those fruits pretty useless? Tang Willeen was jubilant after hearing what Shishi said. He was most afraid that no one would know of these items or where to get them. Then, are those spirit fruits expensive? Tang Willeen lowered his voice as he asked further. Shishi said, not bad, about 10,000 to 20,000 Federation coins for each, depending on quality. 10,000 to 20,000? This was a sum he could afford. Tang Willeen brightened up. If its quality is good, would that mean it's something like 100-year ice crystal fruit and such? Shishi rolled his eyes. Have some common sense, please. A 10-year spirit fruit would be considered pretty good. A 100-year fruit would only be found in auctions, and would be considered spirit treasures. If it's a 1,000-year fruit, then it would be considered a heaven and earth treasure. The meaning of a heaven and earth treasure is that it would be considered priceless. Tang Willeen gave a bitter laugh. Then, how much would a 100-year ice crystal fruit and scarlet flame fruit cost? Shishi answered, those two fruits are more commonly seen than others, but the demand is quite high as well. As such, the price is still reasonable. I'd say it would cost probably 80,000 to 100,000 Federation coins for each one at an auction. Tang Willeen was awestruck when he heard of the price. 80,000 to 100,000 for each one? Following the Golden Light's explanation that he had only half a year to find these items, how would he gain the ability to earn such a large sum? Willeen, what's going on with you? Why would you ask this all of a sudden? Spirit fruits have little use for us, as their medicinal effects are too strong. They might even endanger a human's life. Unless it were a unique situation, they wouldn't be something you'd normally use. They could possibly affect our foundations. There might even be side effects. 1,000-year fruits should be excluded. However, yet those aren't things just anyone can easily obtain. A 1,000-year spirit fruit can also be counted as rare as a soul beast. If it reaches 10,000 years, it would even have its own soul. Tang Willeen's mood gradually calmed down, and he looked towards Shishi. Shishi, can you bring me to the auction house during this week's rest day? I have never set foot in an auction house before. Sure. Shishi agreed without a second thought. He was one who treated strangers coldly, but he changed drastically when treating a friend. Shishi was actually a person with frank characteristics. Shishi moved on to wash up, but Tang Willeen stayed back and retrieved his rarely used soul communicator from the storage ring. He dialed the first contact stored on the communicator. Dou. Willeen, what's the matter? Mang Tian's familiar voice flowed from the other end of the communicator. Teacher, would you be coming to East City during this week's rest day? Tang Willeen asked. Mang Tian questioned. Why? Do you have some questions about forging? Tang Willeen replied. No, but I have something I would like to discuss with you. Mang Tian grew silent for a while before saying. That's great. Teacher has something to discuss with you as well. I'll come by in the afternoon of that rest day. Yes, I'll wait at the workshop. Tang Willeen answered respectfully. Tang Willeen's eyes gave off a hint of deep contemplation as soon as the communication ended. The seal was there, but he had only half year's worth of time. What he needed the most now was money. He needed to earn more money. Yet, he knew well that with his current situation, this was impossible. He had to think of some other ways. Chapter 89. Auction houses exhibit. Eat, study, class promotion tournament. The days flew by quickly. Tang Willeen's trio had begun to be pointed out of the crowd countless times throughout the day. Naturally, this was because of the events at the entrance gates the day before. Many people found it strange that Tang Willeen's trio hadn't been punished by the academy. In fact, everything went on like normal, as if nothing had happened at all. The number of students who had gathered around Wu Zhangkong to watch him grew even larger now, so much so that many teachers weren't even able to enter. After the previous day's battle, the icily arrogant Prince Charming's fame had reached a whole new level. He wasn't just the female student's Prince Charming now, rather, he was the Prince Charming of the entire academy. Despite all of this, Wu Zhangkong showed no reaction at all and was his same old self. In the match after school with the first grades class 2, Tang Willeen, Shishi, and Gu Yue hadn't expended too much strength. Only one of their opponents had a 100-year soul ring, and when faced with the coordination of Tang Willeen's trio, they were completely helpless. Shishi was supported by Gu Yue's firepower and was easily able to defeat their opponents. 3 battles, 3 victories. With the addition of the outburst at the gates the day before, Class 5 had become the focus of attention of the entire academy. Tomorrow was their rest day, and after their rest day, it would come time for them to challenge Class 1. Every single grade's Class 1 was completely different from the rest. That was because Class 1 was a gathering of that year's most outstanding geniuses. In the last 20 years, Class 1 had never been defeated by a class below them in ranking. After eating dinner, Tang Willeen and Shishi prepared to return to their dorm, but Gu Yue stopped them. Where are you two going tomorrow? Hurry up and tell me, otherwise, you can't blame me for being rude. Gu Yue spoke with her hands on her hips and gave them a fierce expression. Although she wasn't particularly beautiful, she was definitely pretty. With her appearance like this, others couldn't help but laugh. Why do we need to tell you where we're going or what we're doing? Shishi snorted out. Gu Yue's mouth twitched as she said, I already heard what you guys were talking about when we were eating. You guys are going out tomorrow. It's fine if you don't tell me, but I'll just go and find Teacher Wu and ask him for additional training. Then you two can forget about running off tomorrow. And in any case, we're going to do battle with Class 1 soon, so extra training would be fitting. How can you be so loathsome? Shishi stared at her with wide eyes before turning it into a glower. Gu Yue coldly snorted. I'm just this annoying. Got a problem? Are you going to tell me or not? Tang Willeen hastily smoothed things over. Gu Yue, I'm the one who asked Shishi to take me to the auction house tomorrow. I haven't ever been to one before. Gu Yue smiled. Good, then we'll all go together then. Shishi avoided looking at her as he said, who wants you to come? This is a man's matter. Gu Yue answered, I didn't say I want to go with you either. With your revolting behavior, it'll be fine if it's just me and Willeen. Shishi eyed her suspiciously. Although he was only 9 years old, Tang Willeen was still exceptionally handsome. Could it be that you like Willeen? You're only this old yet you've matured so much already. Are you looking to die? Gu Yue raised her hand, sending an ice ball flying towards him. Shishi evaded it in a flurry. Haha. It looks like I was right. I'll go tell Teacher Wu that you're following bad examples at such a young age. You can do so if you wish to die. Gu Yue threw herself forwards, a bright light flying from her hand as she chased after Shishi. Tang Willeen helplessly looked at the two of them. He had long since gotten used to the scene of their squabbling. All he could do was raise his arms and stop their fighting. Ultimately, the three of them set off early in the morning the next day. Shishi had wanted to leave early to throw off Gu Yue, but was unable to have his way. Gu Yue was waiting at the dormitory doors and caught him red-handed. Shishi, where is the auction house? Tang Willeen curiously asked as they walked. Shishi shot a glance at the smiling Gu Yue to the side. It's in the Easty Museum. Our Easty City's auction house is combined with the museum. There's a special place to exhibit auction goods in the museum. They will also periodically hold auctions. Let's go look at the goods on exhibition. The auction times will also be listed there. Gu Yue curiously asked Tang Willeen, Willeen, how come you suddenly wanted to go to the auction house? I never saw you show this much interest in it before. Tang Willeen said, it's just a sudden whim. Let's just go and casually take a look. Easty Museum was located just south of Easty City Center. It was a simple and unadorned building, and consisted of one main building and 2 secondary buildings. The main building had on exhibition with all sorts of rare soul beast specimen. Easty City had encountered all sorts of items and beasts over the various ages. To the left was a secondary building, which was the auction house's goods exhibition area Shishi had spoken of. As for the auction house itself, it was on the upper levels of the main building. The auction house's goods exhibition area within the secondary building didn't require one to purchase a ticket to enter, and one could directly enter as one pleased. The number of people who were looking at the goods within numbered more than just a few. The secondary building had 4 floors in total. Although it was just a secondary building, its size was still enormous. Looking at it from the outside, the building was at least 200 meters wide. Easty City was the second largest city on the eastern coast, and this was the city's only auction house. Naturally, its size had to be great. Goods were being exhibited on all 4 floors. They were, however, separated according to their grade. Naturally, some of the rarer and more expensive items would only be displayed in special areas that weren't open to just anyone. As soon as they entered, the trio saw an enormous signboard that showed that the first floor was divided into 2 large sections, soul devices and non-soul device. Within these 2 divisions, the soul device area was divided further into one common metal section and the larger finished soul devices section. Where are we going? She could vaguely guess Tang Wulin's purpose in coming to the auction house, but he still directly asked Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling said, let's go to the non-sold device section. I want to see if they're auctioning those 2 fruits I told you about that day. Spirit fruit. You want to buy some spirit fruit? Dou Yue curiously asked. Tang Wuling said, I don't really want to. I'm just a bit curious and want to take a look, that's all. Although Xixi and Dou Yue were his friends, the matter pertaining to the Golden Dragon King was simply too shocking to tell them. He was still very young, yet he knew that this was the type of secret he absolutely couldn't tell anybody. Then let's go take a look. Clearly, it wasn't Xixi first time here. He was at ease as he guided the other 2 into the exhibition hall. Their surroundings were filled with enormous glass display cases. Within them were countless things Tang Wuling had never even heard of before. The cheapest of the items would still cost at least 100,000 federal coins. These glass cases were all manufactured using a special transparent alloy and were definitely incomparable with normal glass. This is the spirit fruit section. You go and take a look then. After they entered an expansive rectangular room, Xixi stopped. The room was approximately 300 square meters in area. It contained all sorts of spirit fruit and rare plants. Every single spirit fruit had a description attached to them. Chapter 90. Poor youth. Dragon spirit grass. 10 years. A rare plant. The starting auction price for it was 260,000 Federation coins, and it was expected to be sold between 300,000 to 350,000 Federation coins. Water crystal peach, 20 to 30 years. A spirit fruit that nourishes the body. For this fruit, the starting auction price was 150,000 Federation coins. The expected end price was 180,000 to 210,000 Federation coins. They are also expensive. Tang Wuling looked at all of these spirit fruits and grimaced. Quickly, he took another long look and finally found the spirit fruit he was looking for. It was in the final area he searched. Ice crystal fruit, 30 years. An ice-type spirit fruit, rare, nourishes water-type martial souls. It can also help increase one's soul power. The starting auction price for this fruit was set at 180,000 Federation coins. Expected end price was 220,000 to 250,000 Federation coins. Scarlet flame fruit, 40 years. Fire attribute, rare, nourishes fire-type martial souls, and can help increase soul power. The starting auction price for this fruit was 160,000 Federation coins, and was expected to be sold between 220,000 to 230,000 Federation coins. Ice crystal fruit was a type of fruit that appeared glittery, translucent, and light blue in color. This 40-year-old ice crystal fruit size was similar to that of a longan. When viewed beneath the light, wavy lines of white became visible. Scarlet flame fruit was a spirit fruit that was deep red in color with some pale golden sparkles gleaming on its surface. Its size was only a bit larger than that of the ice crystal fruit. After verifying with his own eyes that both spirit fruits truly did exist, Tang Wuling's trust in the golden figure's words increased by a bit. Yet, the ages of these 2 fruits was far from being the 100-year fruits he needed. Right, these are the ones. Xixi unexpectedly appeared and walked up to Tang Wuling's side. This is ice crystal fruit, and that is scarlet flame fruit. Tang Wuling mumbled, but they're not 100-year fruits. Xixi answered, this is an auction. The rarer the good, the higher the level it will be auctioned at. These are only normal goods of the first level. I believe the 100-year fruits can be found at the second level, but we can't go up to the second level. Tang Wuling questioned, why not? Xixi replied, to enter the second level, you would need to first pay a deposit in order to gain the qualifications to bid. Either that, or you must be a third-rank professional and can enter and visit. Deposit? How much is this deposit? Tang Wuling asked. Xixi looked at him with a strange expression. You seem very eager to get that 100-year ice crystal fruit and scarlet flame fruit. Otherwise, why are you being so serious? Tang Wuling gave a gentle sigh and simply said, please, just continue and explain. Observing the bitterness in Wuling's gaze, Xixi frowned. Wuling, have you met with some misfortune? Tang Wuling shook his head. I don't want to lie to you, and I can't tell you either. If you don't explain, then I'll ask someone else. After seeing that Tang Wuling was set to move away, Xixi hurriedly stopped him. All right, I'll tell you. The deposit sum is 100,000 to enter the second level. When you reach the third level, you need to add another 100,000 to the deposit. As you move to high levels, the value of the goods increase and so does the deposit sum. 100,000? Tang Wuling had truly saved up quite a sum of money these past few months and could produce a sum of 100,000. That deposit sum, however, really discouraged him. Then he recalled that Xixi had mentioned third-rank professionals. Would any professional of third rank qualify for entry? Xixi answered, of course. Third-rank professionals are considered elite class. Third-rank Soul Grandmasters are also the equivalent of third-rank professionals. Yet, you have some distance to go before reaching the level of Soul Grandmaster. Not so for me. Soul Master, Tang Wuling really had some distance to go just to reach rank 20, but he was a blacksmith as well. After his time completing numerous tasks for the Blacksmiths Association, his understanding of the association grew. He now knew that the 1,000 refinements was an indication of a third-rank blacksmith, and the only obstacle he had to becoming one was Mangtian disallowing him from revealing his skill. This was the reason why Tang Wuling hadn't tried the third-rank blacksmith examination. This afternoon, Mangtian would be arriving at East City. Tang Wuling's call the other night requesting Mangtian's visit was for the exact reason of allowing Tang Wuling try the third-rank blacksmith examination. After becoming a third-rank blacksmith, his pay for completing tasks would be much greater. Xixi continued, Wuling, if there are areas in which you need my help, please let me know. I'll help you to the best of my abilities. I'm fine. Okay, let's continue and check the other goods. He concealed his emotions. Since he confirmed that the auction house had the items he was looking for, he would come back again when he had the ability to do so. As for the 10 drops of blood from a dragon-type 100-year soul beast, there might be a chance he could also find it here. Yet, he kept quiet about it in the presence of Dou Yue and Xixi. The most important mission today was to check out the area. In the end, this auction house trip hadn't gone to waste. The trio took a stroll around the first level and, aside from learning about new items, they also checked out a few familiar places. For example, forged metals. The rare metals found on the first level were only 100 refined ones. This level of refinement on the first level meant that 1,000 refined metals should be found on the second level. This discovery filled his heart with hope. If he could qualify as a third-rank blacksmith and take on third-rank forging tasks, with sufficient time, it would become possible for him to gather enough funds. After they left the auction house, the trio headed back to the academy for lunch. It wasn't that they didn't want to have lunch outside the academy, but Tang Wuling's appetite was too amazing. He was reluctant to ask Xixi and Dou Yue to pay for a meal, so heading back to the academy to eat for free was the most cost-efficient decision. I'll be going to the forging workshop this afternoon. You guys should go back and train. Right. Can you also go and collect information on Class 1? We have no knowledge about them, Tang Wuling said to Xixi. Xixi knew about Tang Wuling's habit of going to the workshop every week during their rest day. Fine, you can go. Isn't it only Class 1? I can defeat them on my own, Xixi arrogantly declared. Aren't you afraid a huge gal might cut off that tongue of yours? At that moment, a strange, cynical voice sounded. 3 little fish from Class 5. Now that's what I call arrogance. Tang Wuling, Xixi, and Dou Yue turned at the same time and found a few intermediate division students standing a short distance away. Their ages similar to the trio's ages. The person who spoke was a young boy with center-parted hair and good features. While his looks were good, he had thin lips, which coupled with his sarcastic comment, made it difficult for others to produce goodwill towards him. Besides him, the others standing with him all had stony expressions as they glared at the trio. Xixi's expression turned cold as he pounded the table. Just as he was about to move towards them, Tang Wuling pulled Xixi back. He spoke to Xixi in a low voice. We have already caused enough trouble for Teacher Wu. Can't you control yourself? Glaring icily, Xixi spoke out. You guys must be from Class 1. After tomorrow, you'll simply be Class 2. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.